In this video we're going to speak about arpeggios. Arpeggios are a very, very cool technique to know because they work in pretty much any musical situation you can think of. If you ever want to add some guitar to a piece of music, then an arpeggio is something that you know will always work. Very few things that you can really hang your hat on and know it's going to work well. Arpeggios are one of them. So what is an arpeggio? An arpeggio is essentially a way of pulling out the individual notes that make up a chord. So let's look at an A chord, for example. So when we play an A chord and a bar chord like this, we play all 6 strings, but there's only actually 3 notes that are in there. Some of them are duplicated. So those 3 notes are A, C sharp, E, and then of course there's also the octave note above that. So what we can play there is A, C sharp, E, and then the octave note above that. Okay? I'm sure you've had that before, those intervals in that way. Okay, now what's cool about that pattern that I've just showed you there is that works for any major chord. So that pattern there, we happen to begin playing that pattern on A. So that was an A major arpeggio that you just heard. But if we moved it up and we started playing it here, that would be a B major arpeggio. If we moved it down and played it here, that would be a G major arpeggio. So it's a movable pattern. Very, very cool. So if there's a piece of music that you want to contribute to, let's say the piece of music is in A, you want to play something over that, then in your bag of tricks, your arsenal, your locker, your repertoire of musical phrases that you know, then any of those notes in that arpeggio will work well. Sometimes it sounds a bit too contrived if you just literally ascend and descend the arpeggio. It doesn't sound that musical, but if you blend those notes in some way or another, even if you just pull out certain notes, it will always work over a major chord. If it's a minor chord, it's ever so slightly different. Instead of going here, here, there's one note that's different, and that is that we go from here and we drop down to here. So we've just gone 1 fret lower. Yeah? And sometimes it's actually easier to play that C note there, here. So it becomes... You can do either one, but the one that I use the most is this one. I don't know why, that one just works for me. It's the one that I fall back on most of the time, but you can absolutely do the other version. Arpeggios are really good when you want to demarcate or articulate a chord progression as you're moving through it. So let's say if the chord progression was something like... So A to F sharp minor to D to E. It's a really common chord progression that we will see. So sure, like if you want to play that, you can just noodle away in A major pentatonic and that will sound okay, but you won't necessarily hear the chord progression underneath it. Sometimes for a lot of lead guitarists or people who are maybe relatively new lead guitarists, that's a big part of the problem. The notes don't really tell a story. They're just random notes. Now, to begin with, as a lead guitarist, you're perfectly happy with that. You're just pleased to be playing notes that work and that are in the right key. But after a while, you want something more than that, and arpeggios are perfect for that. So if somebody's playing that, and you can play your arpeggios over there. Switch down to the F. And then you can go up to D, up to the E, and you can hear there's some chords that are underneath that. Yeah, you're hearing the intervals of those chords. There's a chord progression in play. You're playing lead guitar, but there is a chord progression underneath it. Let's do that in a little bit of a faster and more musical way so you get more of an idea. Yeah, so you get the idea. What's really cool about that pattern that I've showed you is it also works on the string below. So you can play your D here. Yeah, rather than have to drag your way all the way up to the 10th fret like I just did then, you can make it more convenient by using the notes on the A string as the starting point for your arpeggios. So I showed you an A major arpeggio before. And if I want to just drop down to play the D there, there's the E. The same pattern, we're just beginning it in different places around the neck. And of course, that minor arpeggio also works there as well. So if you wanted to play a D minor arpeggio, you would play it here. Arpeggios are really cool. They come in very, very handy. Sometimes if you're just trying to fill out a piece of music, then using an arpeggio in the background is a nice way to do it. If you're using them in a solo, I'd like to drop in an arpeggio every now and again, but not for the whole progression. So if you're playing something which is, something like that, it's very kind of pentatonic boxy, lots of notes, then it's nice for maybe one of the chords to step away from the widdly notes and just drop in an arpeggio or a phrase from an arpeggio. And then maybe you return to the widdly notes. But the good thing is, because you went somewhere else, the solo sounds much more interesting. If you just bombard people with notes, that's not that interesting to me. There needs to be some musicality underneath it. And dropping in an arpeggio here and there is a really nice, relatively easy way to do that. I hope you now know what an arpeggio is, where it comes from. We haven't covered any of the theory. I just wanted to give you the practical shape so you just know that's how you play a major arpeggio. That's how you play a minor arpeggio. Hope you've enjoyed this. By the way, I'm going to start doing some live streams shortly. I finally figured out how to do live streams after like 6 years of saying I'm going to do it and meaning to do it. I finally got the stuff. So any comments or questions that you leave for this video, I will answer in the live streams, which will be starting next week. So if you've got a particular question or topic that you'd like me to cover, then drop it in the comments below. And then in the live stream next week, I'll answer it for you. And I think that's how we'll do it. Like, people can ask questions in the comments for the previous live stream, and that's what I'll use as the Q&As, as the cues in the Q&As for the next live stream. Hope that makes sense. I hope you've enjoyed this video, learned something new, and I'll see you next time.